Welcome to Envision More. Here, we dig deep into the insights of first-generation wealth builders, unearthing stories of passion, resilience, and relentless vision. Your host is Wayne Wagner Jr., founder of Visionary Wealth Management. So sit back and dig in. It's time to envision more.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Envision More. I'm Wayne Wagner, the host, and my co-host Trent Booth is here from Veritas Leadership Group. One of these days, I'm going to get Veritas out correctly without a screw up.
It's tricky. We went right with the Latin. I'm still working on it.
That's I think that's why you sent your kids to classical education was to get them classically educated so they could pronounce the words that you were going to come up with.
Full disclosure, I used to big league people in my speeches. I would say, nasce te ipsum. It means know thyself. And my daughter was 10, learned Latin, and said, you mean nosce te ipsum? I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Classically trained daughter. Yes.
That's great. when your daughter, your 10-year-old's correcting you in Latin.
While I'm trying to big league people with Latin. Yeah, good times.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Full disclosure. We're still a work in progress.
Good stuff. So Trent, you and I have been talking about the Envision More podcast, Envisioning More, the book that I'm working on for publishing later this year. And we keep coming back and kind of chew it on some of these issues of like why. I think that we're not going to spend too much time on the negative here, but so much of the financial planning industry is focused on a number. Like, I mean, one of the worst commercials for the financial planning industry I ever saw was the one where everybody's walking around with a number under their arm that's just, ticking. And it's like, as soon as you get a number, like you somehow have a moral responsibility to stop working. And, and I just see that as such a small view and vision for the impact that we have the potential to have, that somehow you're just supposed to go put your feet up on the beach. You're just supposed to stop once you have quote enough. And I mean, so many of the conversations. I mean, I was at a wedding last weekend and had sat down at the reception next to a guy. He's going to retire. He wants to retire next year when he turns 65. And I said, why? And he says, well, I don't know, because I have enough. Okay, enough for what? Well, enough to live my rest of my days and my lifestyle. And the financial guy says that I got enough. I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've got family, I've got a grandchild. We'll spend some time. We'll do some travel. Okay. Why? And so we spent the next hour and a half at this wedding reception, just locked in conversation about passions that he has, organizations that he and his wife care about, their own journey, the traumas and challenges that they've overcome, the opportunities that they've had to serve other people in their sphere. And I came away asking him the question, if you're ready, if you're burned out, if you're physically gone, if you're mentally just can't do the work anymore, don't want to do the work anymore. Hey, there's lots of reasons to get to a quote unquote finish line and quote unquote retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so many of the conversations that we're able to have with clients today are, on this topic of envisioning more.
Mm-hmm.
To say, hey, look, the difference between one generation wealth and first generation wealth might be the next 5 to 7 years of you crushing it and not walking away at 58, but walking away at 63.
There's a cliche in leadership development. We say the journey is the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And what's tricky with what's your number, right? And living for that number is often the temptation then will be delay any type of life now because I'm going to hit that number and then I'm going to live. When I hit that number, then life will be robust. And one of the things I love about Envision More is that idea of living now and enjoying mission now while we are working towards an exciting future. but it's bathed in why. Simon Sinek's Start with Why. Wayne, I know that really informed you, and you're on that path even before reading the book.
Yeah.
Why? Where
Yeah.
did why as a thing kind of become, part of your conscious awareness? Where did you start connecting? Hey, I need to not just work towards a number, but help our people work towards a purpose.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it goes back to my earliest coaching opportunities and coaching situations where we wrote my personal mission statement, right? Which I was 26, 27 years old, first time in a coaching program. And my mission statement, which I still abide by, it's just I've now hit the number. It was by the time I'm 50 years old, I want to carry enormous influence in every room I walk into, not because of the power I wield or the position I hold, but because of the investments I've made in every sphere in which I operate. And so it was because early on I had identified influence as the superpower, right?
Mhm.
Influence is the most powerful force in humanity when you can draw other people with you to go do something amazing together and build something bigger than yourselves. It's bigger than position, it's bigger than power, it's bigger than armies, it's bigger than the presidency. It's when you can walk into a room and say, "Hey, here's a vision, will you join me in it?" and people stand up and go. Right? It's what Jerry Maguire didn't have when he walked into the room and said, "Who's going with me?" And nobody stands up, right? So, but
A leader walking alone is just on a walk.
that's
Yeah.
right. But early on, I could see it. Cynic does such an amazing job, um, helping craft the vernacular, the vocabulary to go with it. Because he then goes, he does the start with why, which is like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I spending myself? What is the world that I want to bring to life? That I'm willing to spend myself for. Now, look, we work with a lot of folks in the pharmaceutical industry. And these are people who commit years, sometimes decades of their lives trying to build a world where this specific cancer doesn't take as many lives,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
this COVID virus doesn't kill as many people. So literally, our clients go to work every day and they're on mission. They're
Yeah.
on purpose. They're
Yeah.
like crafting with their hands a
And they're
better
really
world.
saving lives, right? Like,
Yeah,
I talk about
yeah,
saving lives. We had a great conversation about leadership, but I didn't actually save a life today. They're
right.
actually making a dent in the universe.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I mean, and that's the kinds of people that we get to have the privilege of serving every day,
Mm.
and so it's really all we do when we're working with them on the planning side is helping them bring that home
Mm.
because it's so we separate, we lobotomize church and state, home and work, and our clients will be mission focused at work, but then at home the financial plan is just, well, when can I quit?
Right.
And some of that is driven by a lot of that, let's be realistic, is driven by um, the linear career models that we have, right? So I just finished up Arthur Brooks' book, "Build the Life You Want,"
Mm.
co-authored with Oprah Winfrey, and one of the final chapters, he's talking about these career models that are kind of linear in nature, that our modern society really expects you. Well, you did this, and now you're expected to take the next job as a promotion, the next job as a promotion, the next job as a promotion.
Mhm.
Do you know one of the happiest clients I have is a guy who held a VP position in a large pharma organization, and he retired. And then he took a job as a VP of a startup organization. It was a job he could do in his sleep.
Mm.
The job didn't take him 15 hours a week to do.
Yeah.
And he was making less than a third of what he was
Mm.
making when he was working at Big Pharma.
Yeah.
And he is
And he
so
loved
happy.
Yeah, he loved it.
He has something to do.
Yeah.
He likes the work that they're doing. He likes the products they're moving. He
Probably
has
loves the people
time.
he's working with,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
meaningful work to do
Yeah.
and people to do it with,
Yeah.
and he has freedom and flexibility financially to not just live, but to be able to
Mm.
give. And so he and his wife have conversations and they go to charitable events and they write checks to charity within their means. And
Mm.
and he is one of the happiest people that I know. And it's because far past the time
Yeah.
that his little number on his arm under his arm, cross that magic pixie line in the
Yeah.
dust, that finish line, that touchdown line,
Yeah.
and he is now years and years past that.
Mhm.
Um,
And he's living well. I mean, you
yeah,
think about the shift there of, significance and high and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The top of that chain is significance, not just taking
mhm,
care of my own needs, but actually looking out to make a difference for others.
yeah,
And through the company, through the products, but also mentoring the people at that company. I'm sure
yep,
significance beats, that number, that grind
yeah.
beats even maybe extra commas in the check.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Significance is underrated.
absolutely. But we live in this linear world where it's up or out, right? It's go up or go out, and so and precious few of us will have the vision for. Although an increasing number of our clients are actually doing it, the plan actually is
Mhm.
get to that spot where you want to transition, but start having conversations now in preparation for the transition, because there's plenty of companies who can use you part time. There's
Mhm.
plenty of companies. Now, we've got to be careful about what that transition looks like, right? So I have a
Sure.
client who
Yeah.
retired from big pharma and wanted to do consulting. And so he retired, and the company had paid him $1.3 million in prior 12 months.
Mhm.
Right. So, it's real simple math, Trent. You take 2,000 man hours a year, which is what you're supposed to work at work, 50 hours a week, 40 hours, 50 weeks a year, 40 hours a
Mhm.
week, 2,000 hours, divide that into 1.3 million, you get a number like $650 an hour. So I told him, hey, throw in your social security, throw in your benefits, a couple of things like that don't
Mm.
show up in that 1.3 million. Your number's probably 700 to 800 an hour. And so he took his first consulting gig for $180 an hour, and his wife wouldn't talk to him for 2 weeks because she heard me say 800 an hour.
Yeah, 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 that's a gap, that's a gap.
So,
You were describing earlier having a mission, and one of the things I love about Envision more is that we're not waiting for that. In fact, I would
yeah,
think you talk more about why than even the number. I think you start with why and then figure out the number after that.
right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you start because once you start with why, now it's about creating this world. And look, maybe the why is, hey, I want to live in a world where I don't have to think about retiring. I'm going to continue to do valuable work
Mhm,
with people I care about on projects I'm passionate about, enabling me to live a life that is comfortable and has lots of freedom.
mm,
And so, now in terms of the linear line of our careers, that means breaking that linear line in many cases. It means saying, "Hey, I'm not taking the next promotion."
mhm, mhm.
I mean, a number of years ago, I had a client who was a president of a $30 billion a year pharmaceutical company, head of of the Western Hemisphere, effectively.
Um,
Big job, big
mm,
job. He's in the succession plan for the next job. And he came to me and he said, "I will never take that job."
mm,
He said, "No person who has held that job since I have been with this company for 25 years has kept their marriage intact.
sure, yeah,
I won't take that job. My marriage matters more than that
yeah,
move."
yeah,
Now, the financial guy in me is going, "Yeah, but you're getting paid
yeah,
X
but
and that job is
yeah,
3X.
yeah,
I mean, 2 or 3
yeah.
years in that job and we 2 or
You're
3X
set.
your net
Yeah,
worth."
you're set.
Um,
And the other part of you is going, "What if I gain the world and sell
Right.
my soul?" Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's the same guy, by the way. That's
yeah,
the same guy that when what was the hurricane? Hurricane Sandy hit the eastern seaboard,
yeah.
and he had a house in Ocean City, New Jersey. And I was helping out a church down there, and I was sending one of my guys down with half a dozen generators from one of our warehouses. And I was sending a guy down with a truck and a trailer to get on the island. Weren't even sure if we'd get them on the island, but the church needed to get bailed out. They had no water. It was flooded. They needed electricity. And so I called my client, said, "Hey, I got a guy going on the island.
Mhm.
Do you want me to have him check on your house?" And without blinking, without flinching, the first thing the guy said was, "Wayne, every single thing that was important to me was huddled together in bed with me at home. Couldn't
Yeah.
care less about that house. We'll get to it
Yeah.
when we get to it.
It's just stuff. We can get
So
more stuff.
yeah, priorities though.
Yeah.
Priorities, and there's a guy running the whole Western hemisphere for tens of billions of dollars worth, and he's got his priorities right.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Family supersedes the beach house.
So
So
if identity drives behavior, this is one of the tenets that we really push at in
mm,
leadership development. Identity drives behavior. Knowing your why is a significant motivator with regards
yeah,
to that identity, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
somebody's new to you. I mean, that's a hard question. If I've never paused and really done the deep dive on why, I
yeah,
would imagine some people even freeze up. How do you get
yeah,
into a comfortable conversation where we
yeah.
really try to excavate what it is that will truly motivate them, drive them?
So it's definitely not a single conversation journey, right? It's not like we sit down and say, okay, today we're going to talk about why.
Tell me your why.
Um,
Yeah,
so I've done a lot of work on this, and so I can
sure.
articulate a lot of this for myself, although I'm still a work in progress and we're
Oh,
still
yeah, you're 30 years
evolving.
in, right? You've been
Yeah,
contemplating it for years.
right. Um, but I think there's two areas that we really do get into. One is, what are your core values? And this is, we actually encourage clients to go through a curriculum with, and you'll hear me talk about Chris and Melissa Smith frequently in this podcast. We're going to have them on at some point to talk about family brand, because every business has a mission statement, a purpose statement, their core values they want to operate by and function. And then we come home and it's just chaos. And we're just, we're raising the kids and we're doing little league and we're trying to make dinner and we're trying to get, balance work life
Some
and
companies are chaos too. They don't have
correct.
a mission statement,
That's
right?
fair.
Right?
Um,
So, but yeah,
but it's more frequent that companies
sure,
have those things
sure.
than that families have
Almost
those.
no families have a mission statement or purpose statement,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And
Or
so,
identifiable core values for that matter.
yeah.
So,
And so we're still working on this at the Wagner family. Our
sure.
kids are 19 and 22, and we've been working on this for a long time.
Right.
Chris and
Yeah.
Melissa Smith are giving us a curriculum, kind of
It would have been
train
faster, wouldn't it? It would have been
train
more
track to
clear.
run
Yeah.
on, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, it would have been great if we'd have done it when the kids were 3 and 6. That way
Yeah.
we could have taught it to them. Now they're
Right.
19 and 22. We got to invite them into the process. Like, we got to give them a voice in this thing.
Oh, they gotta
You know,
collaborate. Yeah,
we
yeah,
could have
yeah.
had a brainwash by now if we'd have started 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
They're
but
not just gonna ratify that. They're gonna wanna weigh in for
yeah,
sure. And that's
yeah,
appropriate, you know?
yeah. But those are some of the healthiest conversations we're having as a family, where we're identifying. So we're encouraging working with our clients to, to talk really about two things. One is, what are those core values? How do you want to be known, both professionally but personally as a family?
Mhm.
How do you want to show up? How do you want to be known? And then the other side of it is, and this is something, I've got a brother who's a Baptist pastor out in the Midwest, and he and I talk about calling versus stewardship.
Mhm.
And this is something I
Mm.
just had a conversation, deep conversation with a client about a month ago now, where he's in transition out of big pharma. He's moving out of out of a big role in big pharma.
Mm.
Not sure what the next role is, but he's only 51 years old. Like, he's early 50s,
Lots of time left, yeah. Yeah.
low eight-figure net worth.
Mhm.
I said eight figure, not seven, eight.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not a bad net worth. It's not a bad number. That's a number that you can walk away on
Mhm.
easily.
Sure.
Um, but so I asked him candidly, listen, and he said, well, calling stewardship, what's the difference between those two? I would call or name a calling as something kind of sacred. I want to go feed orphans in Africa. I want to go do fundraising for the Ronald McDonald House.
I'm hearing sacred and
Um,
altruistic, right, where we're
yeah,
working for
yeah,
the benefit of others,
right.
not just me. Okay.
Might have a salary. That salary is
What you
not
just
gonna
described
hold.
doesn't usually involve 8
Right,
figures, right? Those are
right,
usually lower
right,
paying or volunteer type work,
right,
but
right.
meaningful work, right?
Exactly. So it's I'm gonna use who I am, what I have to serve others, not others who are gonna be able to serve me back generally, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna spend who I am, and the world I wanna bring about is one where this unseen or unserved people group gets served, and they get
Sure.
served directly by me.
Mhm.
That's different because that's sacred. in my mind. And sacred can be like, we can put that in a religious context, but it doesn't have to be a religious context. It's just that's kind of that's a calling, a pull on my soul.
Mhm.
I would say the other side of it is something far more broad, and
That's
that's
stewardship?
stewardship. Yeah,
Stewardship?
that's
Alright.
stewardship, right? It's because we're all called. We're all given this life. We're given a life, and hey, here we are. I mean, candidly, you and I are two upper middle class white guys having this conversation in America in 2024. Like there are precious few statistical conversations like this
Yeah.
that go on with the color of our skin, the financial backing, the place in history, the geography in history, the opportunities there are to build wealth, to accumulate wealth, and we would use the term accelerate wealth.
Yeah.
But we're here, and that is a stewardship.
Mhm.
Someone has given, the Almighty has blessed us and given us that,
Mhm.
and we're gonna be held accountable for that.
Sure.
Now,
To
whatever
whom
that,
much is given, much is
yeah,
expected, that
yeah,
concept, yeah.
whatever, and that goes everything from Spider-Man, with great power comes great
Sure.
responsibility,
Sure.
to whom much is given, much is required.
Mhm.
It is a biblical text. It's a Quranic text.
Mhm.
It is an Old Testament and New Testament concept. It is, so it supersedes faiths. It supersedes cultures. It is, hey, you have an opportunity to do, to become. Listen, you and I talk about a lot about Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn's comment: "Man is the only all of God's creatures that becomes less than he's able." You never see a tree. You don't look out the window and go, "Oh, wow, that tree's like half the size of the one next to it. I wonder why it chose to grow half as tall as it could."
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that's not a thing. You don't look outside and see a cat chasing a bunny rabbit, and both of them are running at half speed, or one of them's running at
Sure.
half speed,
Yeah.
right? It's all of nature, all of creation does as much and becomes as much. And then mankind, we also live in a system. We live in a
Mhm.
capitalistic system that um, really changes that, defiles that, renames that. Hey, well, if you're going to be a good steward, well, you have to work 60 or 70 or 80 hours a week. I mean, you have to be able to, what if you're young, well, you just can't be a man if you're not supporting your own family. Like, we come up with all these crazy, and it's and so much of, I mean, a lot of, frankly, of the, I would say, spiritual trauma I've personally endured have been where that stuff has kind of gotten mixed into the church, and come out as garbage. But that concept is still pure. It still runs deep. That we're all given this life, and that's a stewardship, and we're going to give an account. And so they come back to the client in his early 50s, low eight-figure net worth. I asked him the question: "Hey, if you're called, let's figure out what and where that calling is, and we'll send
Mhm.
checks. Like, we'll manage the money. We'll just send the checks. We'll make sure there's money in your checking account to keep doing the calling." On the other hand, with your earning capacity, the jobs you're now qualified for coming out of this one,
Mm.
10 years from now, without saving anything, your net worth doubles. So now your eight-figure net worth starts with a 2 instead of a 1.
Yeah.
With your earning capacity and some strategic planning to minimize taxes and jack up contributions to donor advised funds and charitable entities, overall capital could easily start with a 3 or 4 over
Sure.
the next 10 years. And then it's a different conversation. It's not a conversation of how much can we hoard? Because go back to that biblical concept, right?
Sure.
There's the parable of the guy who wanted to just go out and build bigger barns because he had more stuff.
Yeah.
And that night his soul's required of him.
Yeah. You
Wealth
say
isn't
put it in play, help people with it, and yet this envision more is, "Hey, I wanna help people. Maybe I'll just retire and volunteer." I hear you saying, "Hey, you could do that, and also if you work for a little while longer, you might set this up for the next
right,
50 years
right.
if we
Yeah,
envision
yeah.
more," right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the conversation that that he and his wife are really thinking through. We're going to circle back and or I think early second quarter in 2024 as the transition takes place for him. But the bottom line for him is, you know, and I cast this vision for him. What if over the next 10 years, if you're not called to something, what if you and your wife made it your purpose in the next 10 years to find 10 to 15 people who are called to something?
Mhm.
And then we set you up to fund those people for their entire career. And we put the thing, put the pieces on the playing field and build the system to fully fund 10 to 15 people who are called
Mm.
for the 40 or 50 years that they're going to put into that calling. Now let's have a conversation about 40 years times 10 people. That's 400 years of calling leveraged off of the next 10 years of
Mm.
your life. Man, if we can put a dollar in and get 40 out, we're going to build that machine and we're going to repeat as many times as we can get away with it,
All
right?
day long, right?
40 to 1
Yeah.
odds, we
Well,
will,
and if we go back for a second, Wayne, even what you're describing, this wasn't your vision in a vacuum. You find out what inspires this family, and you're kind of riffing with that. So envisioning, helping them envision more with their own core values and their
yeah,
own why.
yeah. Because it all has to be, listen, it's never my job as an advisor to imprint my values on you. It's never my job to imprint my religious construct. I have I have clients all the time ask me, "Well, you're a Christian, I'm not. You're not putting
Are we
Christian
okay? Can we
values."
work together? Yeah.
Yeah, can we even
Yeah.
work together, right? And
Yeah.
then and the reality is it's my job to build your plan to your specifications, right? I'm the general contractor.
Sure.
I'm not
Right.
I'm
It's
not the
their
homeowner.
blueprint, it's their design, it's their core
Right.
values emerging, but you're helping them identify their core values
Right.
and
It's
where that
my
could go.
job it's my job to go say, "Hey, we need windows." "Okay, great, you need windows. What kind of windows do you want?
Yeah.
Big ones, small ones? Do you want ones that are single pane, double pane, triple pane? Do you want them to hold the heat in winter and the cold out, or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?" So, um, it's our job to provide options and to help design it, and hopefully the design comes out better because we were part of the
Mhm.
process. Um, but at the end of the day, it's all built to your specifications, centered on your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, and it's our job to help you envision greater
Mm.
impact,
Mhm.
greater significance
Yeah,
from.
Napoleon Hill used to talk about definite major purpose, and this is again predates Simon Sinek. Again, the seminal
Yeah,
book.
yeah,
Start with why, and yet you've got Jim Rohn talking about, hey, when the promise is clear, the price is easy. So
yeah,
these are not new, but I think
right,
still an
yeah,
important concept
yeah,
here of once we've identified why we're going to do something. So again, getting back to the not just a number, but down the line, this is the mission. In other words, it would be for me inconsistent for somebody to say, I want to make a dent in the universe. I want to help this people group, for example. I'm not going to do anything right now until I hit that number.
right,
That's
right,
incongruent to me. So part of
yeah,
envisioning more
yeah,
isn't just, hey, when we get the number, when and then. It's
yeah,
going to be, hey, while we're here right now, before we've got 8 figures,
yeah,
while
yeah,
we've got not even six, what can we do to start living well right now? Maybe we are investing more time, or we're getting involved with those things that move our hearts now.
yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that and how we, because that's not a normal conversation with an advisor, is it?
No, it's
Volunteering or
not,
pauses.
but I also think that there's, and look, I'm speaking from the journey that I've been on in this, and I've made huge freaking mistakes as well. So, when I was 35, we had an opportunity to take over a private school that my wife and I had both graduated from. We were high school sweethearts. It was this big, it was lots of affection and affinity for this institution, for this organization. We come in, help set up the board, set it up as a separate nonprofit, take it over. We spent 13 years and $6.5 million trying to keep it afloat, and we fail. Like, it closes in 2020.
Sure.
And during that period of time, like, I put on 85 pounds of stress weight and anxiety. We almost bankrupted ourselves. So it is absolutely possible to be
Mhm.
so passionate about something and was so willing to
Well,
I'm called to this,
yeah, you
that
guys were sincere and all in. Yeah.
yeah, we're sincere and all in. And for crying out loud, I need somebody to take me out back and apply a 2x4 to the back of my head and say, "Stop,
Right.
stop."
Yeah. Yeah.
And during that time, May and I also set this lifetime giving goal of $50 million. And our middle school age son, just we're just talking and having conversations, and and Bryce goes, "Dad, if you want to write a $50 million check, why don't you just go get a net worth of 500 million and then write one check? Like, why do you think you need to spend 50% of your time and 60% of your annual income,
Mhm.
and you're killing yourselves and you're creating all this stress in your life and my life and all, like, this is my 13, 14-year-old kid saying this." I'm
Out of the mouths of babes,
like,
right? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But
Like,
he was
"Oh."
looking at it going, "Hey, why don't you just go be a killer business guy
Mhm.
and build the wealth and write one check and build your net worth so big that the check doesn't hurt you."
Yeah.
And I think that's there's got to be balance, right? You can do this and you can be so passionate and you can do too much and you can burn yourself out.
Mhm.
And example number one. So we want to be careful about that.
Well, even how much does that inform how you shepherd those that you're working with? By the way, not only seeing them in their pain when they are struggling or hurting, let's say,
Right.
and I don't know if you could do it the same if you hadn't been through a similar experience. If you hadn't been laid low yourself, I don't know that you can quite empathize the same way.
Yeah.
So as much as we might armchair quarterback and go, "No, I shouldn't have done that," that's a hard one to come up with because it
Right.
has
Right.
informed who you are.
Well,
And I
yeah,
would say all things are being worked together for good for that. There's probably more good than we would acknowledge, and I
well,
get
yeah,
that.
and the other side of that is, I mean, Jim Rohn says you don't go become a millionaire for the sake of $1 million.
Right.
You do it because the person you became
Yeah.
who could build $1 million net
Yeah.
worth. Because then the money can disappear. You can literally set it on fire and start over at dollar
Sure.
one, and you've got all the accumulated knowledge.
Yeah.
And there's great social media influencer. Alex Hormozy talks about
Mhm.
5 years in, he lost it all, and he thought, "Hey, I mean, is this the end for me?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, I built it so much faster and built it to what the mega empire he's got today. Um,
Yeah.
but build it faster the second time. Why? Because he was working with
Yeah.
that 5 years worth of accumulated wealth of knowledge. Um, but yeah, I do think that there's got to be balance. I absolutely agree with you. The What we went through built us into the people we are,
Mhm.
and so we are more balanced. But I think you still hear a lot of passion from
Yeah.
me, right? And I think that, I
Yeah.
think that, and a desire to call other people to live into that passion, because I
Mhm.
think so frequently, is one of the things we're going to touch on in envisioning more of the book, is that as we have professionalized and evolved the financial planning business,
Mm.
we've created this stratification and specialization, right? And we see this all over our economy, all over our society. But two things happen when you stratify and come and specialize an industry. A, nobody sees the big picture,
Okay.
and B, everybody gets stuck in the minutia of the value they're adding to this little piece. Well, on the financial planning side, it's, well, I put together a better plan. I Look how pretty it is. Look at look at how readable these graphs are. Look at the amazing portfolio that we've put together with these eclectic and iconic, investment ideas or themes. Or, I mean, like,
Those all sound sexy. They really do, honestly.
they do, but that's not
Also,
like
right?
all that's doing is giving you, I mean, there's a big section of our industry, they use Monte Carlo analysis. Monte Carlo analysis are meant to go take your net worth at this point in time and go back to 1900. And if you retired on January 1st, 1900, or January 2nd, 1900, January 3rd, and run all of the possible evolutions of this portfolio run out over time in your life expectancy starting in 1900. So you get thousands and thousands of possible iterations.
Mm.
And then you give the client, hey, there is an 87.4% chance that you're going to be just fine. You should sleep well at night because that's a pretty good statistic. The irony to me is that what's the number one thing every investment prospectus starts with? Past performance, no guarantee of future
Future.
results. But you should sleep well because
Objects
87%
in
of
mirror
the
are
time
not
for the last
unfortunately clear.
125 years, you'd have been fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But past
yeah,
performance is no indication of future results.
yeah.
So, I mean, so it just is, it's fascinating to me that we will emphasize in the financial planning community, we'll emphasize the pretty graphs, the readability, the quality of the output, this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, and telling people that you can, because ultimately what we're trying to do is manage fear. Because
Right. I
we,
see a lot of
right,
that in the advising world, man. I see a
right.
lot of fear as a
All we're,
motivator.
yeah,
Yeah,
all we're, you need to buy this insurance product or this investment product
yeah,
because
yeah.
you might not have enough if you don't.
Sure,
Or,
sure,
I you need to trust me because I'm going to make sure that you do have enough. You can sleep well at night. And we're living in selling fear. And I'll, from a faith-based background, it's no different than the altar call at church. You better come get your fire insurance and pray
sure,
the prayer and bend the knee because you might go to hell,
sure.
right?
Now
You
we would
might.
also celebrate good theology, which would say, all right, okay, that's a thing. Also, hey, there's more.
Mhm.
There's more than
Right.
just fire insurance. In fact, living well now totally matters. Yes, while we're excited about
Yep.
a great future, but living now
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So I would say one of the things that I celebrate about at Visionary, I see that your clients, they're listening faster. So if they are, let's say, in a tough scenario, tough situation, like you guys were at with the school, which was, again, noble, the right idea on so many levels, checked a lot of boxes. We wanted to help and we could help. So let's help. And yet also not healthy at some point where you go, hey, we got to get out of that. You listened quickly. Yeah, many advisors, not just your son. I think I was trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
Tried the
Yep.
feather, eventually used the brick.
Yep.
At some point, though, you're listening faster with your clients. You're just, what is it about Visionary that I don't see it spreading to a lot of other advisors just yet, where you guys are really kind of talking about vision. We're talking about mission. We're talking about purpose and why.
Yeah.
So how often will you meet with your clients to be able to kind of get into, are we on track? Are we pivot? Do we need to pivot?
So I think for every client's going to be different, and certainly we have a range of clients at our firm, right? So we have folks that we're managing the only few $100,000 they're ever going to have, and most of those folks are kind of friends and family members. Um, and then we have folks who have retired who have got kind of in this 1 to 3 or 4 million range, who they are retired, they've got their number, they just need to kind of tread water and
Hmm.
they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, yeah,
um, and then there's our really what we call our avatar prospect or our avatar client. And these are folks who generally have first of all, have a realistic possibility of breaking out above 5 million in net worth before they
hmm.
cross the finish line.
And very
Um,
often first generation. Yeah,
yeah, first
yeah,
generation wealth. They're not typically inheriting this money, they're building this money.
yeah.
And part of the reason, so think about how most of the financial planning community functions and operates. Most financial planning firms, the big one, the ones that market, do the dinner seminars, do TV, that kind of stuff. Their avatar prospect is someone who generally has between 100 and about $700,000 or $800,000 in assets and is at or in retirement now.
Mm,
And
mhm.
Trent, that's why fear sells so well,
Right.
because I can sell if you have 500,000, the market goes down 20 or 30%, you're going to be well below and you won't make it. And
Right, right,
so
right.
I can sell you a plan, I can sell you a construct, I can sell you a product or a set or a sell you a thesis that is going to help you sleep at night and help you get to the grave without bouncing your last check.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so the difference between the average firm and a visionary is who that avatar client is,
Mhm.
because that avatar client for us now, we gladly get involved with families who are 5 to 25 million in net worth, and some of them much higher than that.
Mhm.
We gladly get involved in those situations and help those families go from first generation wealth to multi-generational wealth. But much more frequently, we're brought in when the household is kind of in the 1.5 to $4 million net
Sure.
worth,
Yeah.
but they're kind of in their late 40s to early 50s on average,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so they're outgrowing their buddy from college that was managing the money. They're
Mhm.
outgrowing the insurance company agent that's got them spending way too much money on life insurance and viewing that as some kind of college fund or some horse crap thing like that. Um,
Sure.
they've got, they're outgrowing the blankety blank Jones guy down on the street, down the street that's got an office in every town.
Sure.
So they're outgrowing those first couple of iterations.
Mm.
Um, they also are looking for they're looking for a relationship with somebody who gets it, for
Yeah.
somebody who can give them a 30,000-foot view and say, hey, here's how your career, financial world, tax structure all kind of start to fit together.
Mhm.
And by the way, let's talk about your estate planning, what your income plan is for retirement, all these other areas. And let's make sure these things are dovetailing and feathering together. And let's start talking about why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start talking about how you want to show up, what your family's core values like,
Yeah.
and and a lot of it is for us, Trent, really is me sharing my own journey and say,
Mhm.
"Hey, this is the journey I've been on. This is the journey I'm on." Um, I had a guy last week ask me, when do you plan to retire? Because he hears me talk about, well, we have all our pieces of about a dozen different companies that we own,
Mhm.
and that comes with a certain net worth, a certain flexibility and freedom. And but my answer to him is, well, I'm never retiring. And I'm not saying I'm going to work till they carry me out, but I'm saying I'm
Sure.
living the life that I love. Like,
I was
why
gonna
would I?
say, you love it, don't you? You just love meeting with those avatar clients and making a difference. Why would you stop
Yeah.
doing that, Wayne?
Right. And it's now look, I've got to be a good steward of
Sure.
visionary wealth management. We've got to
Yeah.
build the service team, we've got to build the next generation.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, this is not something that I have zero desire to go to quit doing what I'm doing. I get to have conversations with
Yeah.
people all over the country
Yeah.
who are doing amazing things
Yeah.
and having a huge impact in their careers, and they're looking to take that impact in their careers and try to duplicate it, try to
Mm.
replicate it in their personal life, and figure out how, once I've got enough money, what why am I still working? Should I still be working?
Mm. Mhm.
Because maybe you shouldn't, because again, back to,
Sure. Sure.
if there's a calling, you shouldn't be working for money. You should go chase the calling. So
Mm.
let's put the plan together to enable you to chase the calling.
Mhm.
So it's a fun journey that we're on. It's been a fascinating journey that May and I have been on and continue to be on. We hope that we're creating coattails today. So not just our kids, but business partners and strategic relationships like that with the one we've got with Veritas Leadership Group, and and some others. And we hope that we're adding value to those relationships and taking others along on that journey to envision more. And it's really, helping people to live in that balance between calling and stewardship. And to say that, hey, and by
Yeah.
the way, stewardship, it's
Yeah.
stewardship in all things, just like moderation in all things, right?
Sure.
Um,
Stewardship, including time, skills, talent, things I'm
yep,
great at, I'm gonna be
yep,
held accountable for.
yep,
So, a year and a half ago, I'm still considering I'm at a company that I've been with at that time 29 years. It's hard to get away from a place you've been for 29 years, very much identify as being home. And we're walking the boards, you and I, in Ocean City, New Jersey. And you asked me the question, what would it take for you to make the transition and do Veritas full time? It'd been successful. It had been incubating for about 6.5 years at that point, been doing pretty well. And you're like, what would it take for you to actually make that transition? And that question started process that 100 days later, I'd made the decision 100% to leave Vector Cutco and do Veritas full time. And no question, even 13 months later, it was the right move. I just love that you enjoy having those type of conversations. And for you, the line between vocation and ministry kind of blurs. It's like
Mhm.
the same version of Wayne we get, Sunday after church is the same version I'm going to get sitting down at your table, talking through mission,
Yeah.
purpose, family life plan, and the holistic plan to be able to help you experience that.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just about that number, but it's about enjoying it right now, Wayne.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is because if you can build a life that you enjoy today, then there's no need to retire from it, right? And the number one thing that we need to accelerate wealth, to take one generation wealth and turn it into multi-generational wealth, the one thing we need is time. And so when we have a profile and avatar type client who has the potential to go from one generation to multi-generational wealth, and we can help them design a life, a lifestyle, a career that's going to allow them to stay on the field playing, generating revenue for an extra 5, 7, 10 years
Mm, mhm.
because there's purpose, because there's calling, because they've stepped away from the single big company employer who is requiring 80 hours a week and the linear progression of their career. It's up or out.
Yeah.
When we can step away and break the bondage of that and give that family the freedom to be thinking differently, then they can continue generating capital longer. And when they generate capital longer, the wealth they have multiplies again. And as the wealth multiplies again, now conversations start to get different because now it's not, conversations about are you going to have enough? Now it's there's going to be plenty for this life. How do we accelerate your kids? And by the way, it's more important what we leave in our kids and what we leave to our kids. So let's not just think about gifting them the money. Let's start having conversations with the kids about family values, about things that we would want to see replicated in them. For our kids, we talk about the operation of the businesses as a stewardship in and of itself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't expect their actual values to solidify until they're probably in their early 30s.
Mhm.
And our
Mhm.
kids are 19 and 22 today. So we don't expect that to solidify till then. And so what we've said to them is like, look, the estate plan in terms of who gets put in charge of what, it doesn't actually solidify until mom and I die. But like we're not even seriously considering you to take over responsibility for the businesses until we know that you've achieved a stage of life physically, psychologically,
Mhm.
philosophically, that we know that your values are kind of have solidified and stabilized now, and that those values line up with mom and I,
Yep.
right?
Alignment
Because
matters. And
yeah,
actually putting that on them now could be a lot of pressure that could be unfair even. You know what I'm saying? Because you still are I hear you giving them, agency, volition in terms of what they choose those
right.
values to be.
Yeah,
They're not to be ours.
that's
If
right.
you're gonna do this,
Yeah,
that they would need to be aligned, but also, guys, live your life well.
yeah.
What's interesting with
Well,
that was you might find how attractive that those values that you guys are carrying still are when they don't
right.
have to, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. Well, and I'll go back to just because I just finished his book, Arthur Brooks' book on Build the Life You Want. He talks about happiness, and so much of happiness comes from a life of service to others. Where there's and they and he references some studies that were where they studied groups of people who they said, hey, for the next 10 days, we want you, three groups of people, right? One is every single day, we want you to do something to serve yourself, like go get a
Mhm.
massage,
Mhm.
go have a good meal out, go do something that specifically services yourself. The second group is a group that, hey, every day we want you to look for someone in your sphere that needs help. And we
Mhm.
want you to think good thoughts for that person. We want you, and it could be, you could call that prayer, you could call it meditation, you could call it affirmations, whatever it is, but we want you to think good thoughts for that person. And then the
Mhm.
third group was, hey, we want you to find somebody in your group that needs help. And every day for the next 10 days, we want you to do something for someone who can do nothing to repay it to you. And at the end of the 10 days, they evaluated the three groups:
Mhm.
the people who were happiest, the people who were most fulfilled, who felt most purpose and most connection to other people. Every category was the people who did something for someone else every day. And so if the science bears it out
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
happiness is found in serving others, like, how do we go down to the food pantry and find the happiest people in the
Right.
world serving behind the lines at the food pantry?
They've got so many other
Right.
things taken care of, right? Like, I never heard the word altruism in high school or even college. I heard it years later. And when I heard the definition, I just looked it up just to make sure I got it right. Because I find this to be a weak definition, but it says a showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others, unselfish. And I like to redefine altruism as being wildly sold out to the success of others. I
Mm.
really feel, Wayne, like this is one of the things that does describe not just you, but the work we're doing day to day at Visionary and this Envision More book and the podcast. This needs to be a thing, not just getting it out via book form, but this podcast. Part of our desire here is to serve others and to kind of spread this altruistic mission here, friends.
Yeah.
Again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the reasons why that's at the top is that you've taken care of yourself. You're doing all these other things. You've got psychological safety, you've got your needs provided for.
Yeah.
And then what? Okay, it's not just for you. Take care of others. Take care of people.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the other side of this trend is that it's not a like, these values are individual and personal and unique.
They're really
So
intimate too.
I
Yeah.
have a great
Yeah.
relationship. One of my favorite guys to spend time with, and I won't use his name, but he's a guy who has no religious backdrop at all. Zero. No relationship, no second thought for the
Mhm.
Almighty. And we joke about it together because he violates everything I was taught in Sunday school. Everything I was
Sure.
taught in Sunday school was that people who are kind and generous and altruistic and caring are people who are Christians, because it's Jesus living in you and through you that brings you out. And then I meet this guy, and he is the most kind, generous, caring, altruistic person I've met, and he's got zero faith construct. And when you talk to him about it, he's like, "Yeah, I have no faith construct, but I mean, like, that's the way people should act." And so it's I've had my own kind of preconceptions kind of violated over my life, where I've had to be confronted. We have clients who are, um, and the right winger, the right wing redneck would call them tree huggers, who we have the most amazing. I learn stuff every time I talk to Steve and Rachel. Every single time I talk to them and interact with them, I learn great things from them, and it's so much fun. And they inform me and educate me on things like global warming and stuff. I mean, on the right wing side of politics, they make jokes about cow farts, and global warming. Well, Steve and Rachel can talk intelligently and scientifically about that, and I learn stuff from them.
Mhm.
And so when when their organizations that they give to are aligned with their values.
Mhm.
And so we support and enable and affirm and encourage and manage the money for them to be able to give to organizations that, in the world I grew up in, these places would never be on my radar screen. But I have such rich, deep relationships and friendships that cross these call them cultural barriers or values barriers. It's a
Not
privilege
such
to
a
be invited.
barrier when you stay curious like you are, Wayne. I tell you, as a curious person, I think it makes it easier for you to say, all right, I knew I was raised this way, but also you're amazing. I like
Yeah,
hanging out with you. Let me go deeper with you.
yeah,
That's envisioning more. That feels
yep,
good.
yeah,
Towards the end of our time here, Wayne,
yep.
if we're saying, okay, if the topic is envision more and we're starting with why, how do we want to, what do we want to leave our people thinking?
I think that we need to be thinking bigger than the numbers. If you are, if you're at a spot in your career, or you're looking at, hey, I've got enough to retire, but hey, I'm going to inherit money from mom and dad, and that could be, that could change how I'm thinking about this stuff. Like, I mean, one last quick story. I mean, the guy that The guy that I met at that wedding, he said, "Hey, listen, most of our income needs are going to be covered by our pensions and Social Security. We really don't need any of the wealth that we've accumulated." They said, "Well, what if you set it up so that you spent 4% of that every year, but you gave that 4% to charity instead of spending it on your lifestyle?" And that became a part of your why.
Hmm.
That became part of the what are you going to do during retirement is you're going to find organizations and you're going to use that 4% of your net worth every year. The money that every financial advisor should be saying, well, this is how much you can spend.
Mm,
That the what and the why are going to be, hey, spend that 4% on charity, on mission, on purpose.
sure.
And so
That's
that's
a good
the
way.
and so that's what we how we want to be helping people envision more. And yeah, we're going to overlay that with the tax planning and the estate planning and the and the integration of values and mission into your life's work. Um, what we find is that so many of our clients are already living on mission, on purpose. It's just driven by career instead of family.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's just been a perpetual motion machine that's gotten to that point as they function inside this linear up and out model of career development. And so we want to take that, start to pull apart and figure out the good from that mission living and bring it home.
There you go.
And then how do we start to dive into this conversation of calling and stewardship? We're all given a stewardship in this life. Some of us are called to do some pretty sacred things, some pretty special and holy things. How do those of us who are generating the revenue should be looking for the people who are called and helping enable them to do the things for the people who can never repay either of us. And that's mission living, that's purpose living, that's envisioning more.
Thank you for listening to the Envision More podcast with Wayne Wagner Jr. of Visionary Wealth Management. We hope you were encouraged and inspired by the conversation today. If you want to dig deeper into the show notes or Wayne's work at Visionary, you can find us at envisionmore.com. That's Envision with a Z. Advisory services are provided through Wealth Plan Investment Management. Wealth Plan Investment Management and Visionary Wealth Management are separate entities. The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Thanks for listening.